next test we're going to do is the plank test to check core stability over a period of time. So isometric strength. And we're going to have him go into a plank on his elbows. Notice Steve has his elbows directly below his shoulders. His butt's not sagging, but it's not excessively high. And the weight of his lower body is on his toes. All right? His abs are nice and tight, as well as his glutes, hamstrings, and lower back. Within the first few seconds, I'm going to ask Steve, is your back hurt?
No.
All right, so then I would continue the test. If he would have said yes, then we would go ahead and stop the test and progress. If he can hold this up for up to 90 seconds, I'm going to stop the test. At 90 seconds, I believe that the client is strong enough to move into a more dynamic type of plank so we can add movement to the plank. All right, you go ahead and stop, Steve. So if he does have back pain, I'm going to immediately regress him. Well, actually, first I'm going to go ahead and try and stimulate his spinal erectors by having him lay back down on the floor in a fully prone position, hands fully outstretched, feet at full extension. I'm going to tighten up and go into a Superman for about a 1 count and come back down. We're going to have him do this for a couple sets, probably 2 to 3 sets of 10, just to activate his spinal erectors. From there, we're going to put him on a box. Elevate the plank, and now I would ask him, after about 20 seconds or so of this plank, Steve, does your back hurt?
No.
All right, so it doesn't hurt. From this point, we could technically put him back down into a regular plank. We can go back down. And hopefully, just by activating some of his spinal erectors, we've alleviated that pain. So notice Steve just dropped down to his knees. If we need to, we can go ahead and, there's another regression we can do by lowering his knees. We effectively do the same thing as put him on a box. Raising up onto his hands, again, very similar to the box, but it's just it's not as great of a progression.
Go.
All right, the second thing we're going to look at in our plank is whether or not their hips sag within the first few seconds of their plank. All right. So go ahead and get the right position, Steve. All right, so this is where we want them to be. If they start sagging in the first few seconds, their abdominals are either too weak to hold it, or they're just not activated, and their back is overcompensating. So the first thing we're going to do is have the client flip over, and we're going to abdominal activation. For this one, I'm just choosing lemon squeezes. All right, so you bring his elbows and knees together. It's almost like a modified VIA, so to speak. All right, have to do 2 or 3 sets of 8 to 10 if they're capable. Otherwise, we can do other activation techniques. Have them go right back into a plank. Oh, sorry. We're going to go ahead and stretch the spinal erectors by having him reach out and drag his hands back into child's pose. All right, do a couple reps of that. Really focus on sitting that butt down on his heels, stretching the spinal erectors, and go back into a plank. Hopefully at this point he's going to be able to hold it with a little bit better posture. Again, keeping his elbows below his shoulders. His hips still sag, so what I'm going to have him do is actively try and pull his elbows towards his knees into a plank squeeze. He's going to hold that for as long as he can. The plank's not going to last as long at this point, but at least we'll keep good posture through the plank.
Ready? Yep. Go.
The third thing we're going to look at is the exact opposite of what we just looked at. So instead of the hips sagging, the hips are going to start rising. This can signify a couple things. They're not strong enough to hold a plank, so we need to regress it, or their abs are really tight and their back is very, very loose, not allowing them to get into a good plank. So first thing we're going to do is activate our glutes by going into a bridge. Have them squeeze the glutes as hard as they can. Do me a favor, Steve, bring your heels in a little bit farther along. All right, good. Now raise up again, squeezing only glutes. If their heels are out too far, they're going to be activating a lot of hamstrings to do this movement. All right. Second thing we're going to do is stretch our abs. So let's go ahead and go into a seal stretch or a cobra stretch. So have them keep their hips as close to the ground as possible, pushing their chest and head up to the sky. Look at the ceiling, Steve. Really stretch their abs out. Try and shift forward just a little bit. Scoot your hips forward. There you go. Really, really stretch the abs. So hold that stretch, go back into it. Hopefully it'll bring their abs down, their butt down a little bit. If they're still not in there, we're going to start to regress this. So either they're going to go down to their knees, or they'll come up to their hands while staying on their knees, or they'll come up to their feet. All right? If they can't do that, we will go back to the box and elevate them. And again, keep them in good posture here. Notice, no matter where Steve's at in these planks, his head's staying in a neutral position, keeping his spine in good alignment. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is whether or not the elbows stay directly underneath their shoulders. All right, as a lot of clients get tired, they start to bring their hips up, again going back into our last point, and as they do that, they don't move their elbows. This could be the same problem as we had last time, but once we correct that, it'll correct this. If not, then we're looking at upper back weakness or some shoulder weakness in there as well. So what we're going to do to alleviate that through a few correctives is grab a stiff band, just have them do some nice rows, activate the lats. Alright, from there, we can look at doing a band pull apart, with the upper back activated. Hopefully going back into this will correct the issue. If doing the steps from our last step didn't correct. The next thing we're going to look at is whether or not they rotate in their plank. So what happens is start to favor one side over the other. We're going to start pulling with that favoring side. So what we want to do here is flip them over, and we're going to strengthen their weak side. You're going to have to do a straight leg raise by himself. We can also add some manual resistance. You have them pull up through that. We're going to stretch the other side just by doing a really simple hip flexion stretch and really sinking his pelvis into the floor, stretching the favoring hip flexion. All right, go back in, and more often than not, this will correct the problem. If it doesn't, we go through our same progression, whether we go to knees, come to our hands, or move over to the box. All right, the last thing we're going to look at is whether or not their chest caves in during their plank. All right, so if you see their shoulder blades come together, and their chest is collapsing between their arms, we're going to ask them to stop, and we're going to start having them activate their chest, and we're going to stretch their back. So first thing we're going to do is have them do scat punches. Go ahead. So real quickly, we're going to have them sink down like they were, and then jump right back out of it by spreading their shoulder blades apart. Really pushing them back up. All right, scat punches. All right. The second thing we're going to do is a real quick chest plyometric. So you're going to stand at the top of them, asking them to keep their hands outstretched. You're going to drop the ball directly in their hands, and they're going to return it as fast as possible. You do this for a couple sets of 8 to 10 reps, and come over. We're going to stretch your upper back. Have to grab something solid, power rack, Smith machine, really anything. Just have them sink back, stretching their rhomboids and mid traps. All right, and we're going to retest. Oftentimes, if they're not able to keep their hips from sagging, their chest will sag as well. So we may have to do those regressions or corrections to fix this. If they still can't do this, then we're going to have them regress the same way, go to the knees, go to their arms, or again, come over to the box.